Hi, I'm Blake Rayhans.
And I'm Stacie Mallon.
And you are listening to the Optimized AF podcast.
We know life is hard. We're here to make it simple.
Hey there, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Optimized AF podcast. I am Blake.
And I am Stacie. And today we're talking about the fact we're going into summer. And we're not going to talk about bikini season because ain't nobody want to talk about that. We're going to talk about kids for the summer.
Talk about taking a pivot.
Yeah. So I think I had this realization about a month ago that my kids have not really been totally in school, and now they're going to be out of school.
Yeah, this episode's for the parents.
Yes.
Yeah, it's episodes for the parents out there. You've got a unique transition coming here of, summer traditionally, right? Let's think about it. It's this huge break. It's this release. The kids are done. They get to stay home. They get to sleep in. Did you see the transition point there? They get to stay home. They get to sleep in. They get to snack all day. It's like, what is really changing for them?
Yeah.
They're not logging into a Zoom.
Yes.
Whoop-de-doo.
And now I will say for kids, let me just validate where they are. It's probably a relief to not have... I think it's been hard for kids to navigate Zoom. I think they're going to feel very relieved that that chapter is done for the school year and move on. Unless you have summer school, which some kids may have. But we're talking about the fact that now you're going to be back in the situation that you're working and your kids don't really have anything specific of where to go and what to do. And so what do you do? And I just like everything else in the last several episodes, we're going to talk about this as an opportunity. And it's an opportunity to help them find their way here this summer and do things that they couldn't do during the school year, probably because of COVID, probably because of lots of, conflicting factors. And yes, would I encourage you if you're comfortable doing so, maybe taking them somewhere? Absolutely. I think everybody needs a little bit of a mindset shift, and sometimes location is part of that. But what we're talking about is the day-to-day during, let's say, May, June, July, August, of how you're going to navigate in your family and your household when very realistically, the adults in the household are potentially still working from home. And now you have, kids that have really gotten into the habit of barely leaving their rooms or their beds or fill in the blank. So what are the tangible tips and tricks, and how can we help optimize this experience for you? So in talking to Blake on the drive over, we have very different age kids. Yep. So we're going to talk about both of those age sets.
Yeah, I think there's some differences depending on the age of the children in the home. But there's also some things that we're going to give you and leave you with as ideas that are applicable across. But let's start off with, when you're in this situation, how do you optimize? What we're talking about is in the person of focus here is the child or children in the household and their situation of summer vacation, making it feel different than coming out of the school year. And as a parent, you also want to optimize and maximize their day, and you don't want it to just waste away. But the reality that you're sitting in is you're going to be working. They're going to be there with nothing, really actively taking their time, and they're going to want your time. You're going to want their time. You're going to probably feel a natural pull to say, yeah, you know what? I got the swimming pool in the backyard. The kids are on summer vacation. It's noon and they're out swimming. And I'm going to feel this pull as a dad. I'm going to be like, I want to be there. I don't want to lose that moment, but I'm working. So you have a real dilemma there. You have to figure out how to do this. So how do you do it? You're going to set boundaries. You're going to set up some parameters. And I think you probably also need to have a conversation with your employer. Should you be able to, if you are in a situation where you can be very open with them and say, hey, look, you know what? I'm going to really maximize my time in the early morning being online and available. And I'm going to plan to take and eat lunch with my children every single day. So I'm going to be offline at noon because they're in the home and I want to be there during those moments. I don't want to lose it. If you feel comfortable having that conversation, then do it.
Yep.
Really, just take the time to say, is that doable? Even if it's only a few days out of the week, push for all 5, but see what you can get. That way you can have the time with the kids.
One other work-related tip that I would say is there are a lot of co-working spaces. There's a lot of places that have started to open up around working remotely. So it might be worth your time, energy, and effort to find for your own sanity, a few days a week or one day a week, even when you need to be incredibly productive, to find a space where you can go. And maybe, Starbucks is some of them are open in the inside and some aren't.
Yeah.
But, Galvanize has that option. There's other, the Forum down in Chandler. So even a drop-in where you can go and put your headphones on and work. The other thing, and I'm going to start doing this, is I'm going to put a sign up on the door when I'm on calls. And I will say, you'd think, again, teenagers would be, oh, mom's on a call, I can hear she's on a call. Oh, no. They just come on in. My son the other day came in. I was on a call. He's writing me a note because, yes, I'm making visual contact with the people on the call. I can look at you and read your note. It's just teenagers are about their own worlds and you're just living in it. So I don't think this is an age thing.
It is not.
This is
you can see me right
universal.
now. I've got the same.
Yes.
Brielle's 7 years old, and just recently she was at home when I was working too, and she comes up, she grabs a piece of paper off the printer, she goes and scribbles something. She's standing right over my monitor. I'm fully on a call, on a Zoom call. She's holding up a sign that says, "Can I have a snack?" And of course at 7, it's every word is misspelled, but phonetically I can make out what she's asking for, and I'm like, is that really urgently necessary right now? And in her world, absolutely.
At 4 o'clock in my house, everybody wants to know what's for dinner, and nothing will stop them from getting the answer from me, whether I'm on a call or not.
My answer is the same every time.
Yeah.
What's for dinner? What I'm making.
What I'm making, yeah.
Well, what is it? It's what I'm making.
Or what I'm ordering some days.
Or what I'm ordering. Yeah, let's be honest, but it's what you're getting.
So I think that setting boundaries, which you said off the top, is completely appropriate. And I'm right now going to the office one day a week, and I love it. I don't want to go in every single day. It's a long drive for me, but the space that I get in the drive is very healthy for me. Maybe I amp that up to twice a week or whatever happens over summer break. I think finding a space where you can go is helpful. Setting a boundary, having the conversation with your kids, having snacks at the ready in the fridge so that you say to them, yes, if you're hungry, there are snacks, please eat them. Maybe telling my children, I'll put up a weekly menu board and that's what's for dinner. Don't ask me. All these tools and tricks on how do you create boundaries, because here we are, we're going to be back in the same space we were right when COVID started, which is this intermeshing of everybody's worlds. So, and what did we learn from last summer? That's a really great conversation to have, because one thing I learned is video games suck Wi-Fi like nobody's business. So, if maybe creating boundary around, you guys can't live stream, and do your video games from this time to this time because we need the bandwidth for our calls. It's totally appropriate to have those conversations. The next step is, how do you take this as an opportunity? And one thing I brought up to Blake that I thought that we're thinking about doing with our youngest is setting up, calling parents and doing some rotations with other parents. We record this in Arizona. Arizona's hot in the summer. So telling kids to go outside unless you have a pool is not humane. I'll be honest. It's 120.
Not an option.
It's not an option.
It's not an option.
So you're in this interesting dichotomy because it's hard to go outside unless there's a pool to go to. And quite frankly, your kids need supervised if they're at the pool. So they can't just be like, hey, go to the pool.
Can't be, hey, go entertain yourself and come back when the streetlights are on. That's not an option anymore.
No. So I think really thinking about this now, you're a few weeks maybe from school, start to reach out to other parents. Find out what they're going to do. See if you can create a rotational schedule with other parents. Like, hey, what if I have them on Tuesdays? I have the 3 of them on Tuesdays, and then you rotate for 3 days a week. Or if you can find 5 parents, 5 days a week.
Yep.
I think having intention there is really critical to creating connection for them, because let me just tell you what will happen otherwise with teenagers and pre-teenagers, they will not leave their rooms. They will sit in a blue light on their phone for all day, every day. They will not move a muscle. They will get no vitamin D. And then they're going to wonder why they feel like crap. And the answer is you're not having real human connection. Yes, you're FaceTiming your friends, but it's not, or snapping your friends, but it's not the same thing. So I think being intentional about creating human connection, I think is one thing for this summer that I would highly recommend, regardless of the age of your kids.
Yeah. When we were talking about this on the way over this morning, I loved this idea for so many reasons because first I started to think about, and I never did this as a kid growing up, but the summer camp. Mm-hmm. And even as we started this episode off, a lot of it was about the parent, kind of how do we make sure we can do what we need to do. And we're kind of, entertaining or appeasing the kids so they're out of our way. And we kind of joked a little bit about some distractions, but as a very intentional parent, somebody who wants to not passively go through that role, what we're talking about is taking an opportunity to identify what is going to benefit the kid the most. And the socialization piece is so key to that. So in years past, and some people still do this, I believe in a big way, is you send them to a summer camp. They are interacting, they're socializing, they're learning, they're being active, they're navigating social, norms. They're navigating social situations that might, put them in an awkward position, whether it be that they're, socially outcast or they said a bad joke or whatever. I mean, these are things that kids have to experience to understand what it is to be part of a group, and they meet new people and they experience new things. I know that some camps around here that I've heard of are still doing the programs even as we come out of post-pandemic.
Maybe in a more limited way. So yeah, that's something to consider.
Maybe in a limited way, but that might be an option for you. But when you mentioned this idea about the rotation, I loved it because you get to identify, and if you do, let's just say it is for five families, because you got 5 days, Monday through Friday, you've identified five kids. Yours is one of them. You host the other 4 kids at your house that day. You intentionally put some things in place that the kids are occupied. They know what they can do, what they can't do. They're not bugging you, and you get it. You're able to get your work done. And then the next day they're at some other house, and you've got 4 days where they're out, right? And it's spreading that through a community. We talked about this really early on when we started this podcast. What was one of the main goals we had for this was to create a community, because whether it's through a community of like-minded people that want to absorb a certain conversation or content, or whether it's a like-minded community that can look out for the development of your children and make sure that they're receiving the same boundaries and they're receiving the same type of nutrition and they're receiving the same type of entertainment, and you've got that community that you can build. Identify that now. Identify who that circle is before the school year is done and see if you can't put that in place. And that gives a lot to the parents, right? But it gives so much to the kids.
Yeah. And it creates a rhythm too. And I think kids are, need that structure. Adults need the structure too. So I think one thing that we learned in COVID was kids need rhythm and structure. And so in the the vacuum of that, they kind of, decomp into not a good place. So I think anything that you can do to create a natural rhythm. Now, younger children get up at the crack of dawn regardless, but I'll say in our house, it is not a surprise on a Saturday if no one's awake at 1:00 in the afternoon, which blows my mind, because in my world, I'm like, there is my whole day. Like I had opportunities galore to do things. And I think during the weekends, it's healthy for teenagers and preteens. They need a lot of sleep to give them the permission to be out of their cycle. However, you cannot go for months over the summer and have them be out of sync. So what I would say is if you don't do the parent, the parent group or summer camp or any of those things, what are the other things that you can do to create rhythm? I know all my kids belong to Mountainside. So one thing we've discussed is telling them like, hey guys, all go over together, go to Mountainside for an hour and, move or sit in the sauna. I don't care what you do, but get out of the house and create movement in your life and have that be at a certain time of day. So And you'd think for teenagers, especially teenagers who drive, maybe you don't need to do this. And that might be true because they may have jobs. But I'm talking about teenagers like 15 and under where they don't have the mobility to do that. So and we forget, they kind of fall in between the cracks because you assume they're going to be good and they're going to create their own thing. And I'll be honest, they really don't for the most part. So I think having that. I also think if you have, this is just came to mind, if you have those older, those teenagers that are 15-ish, I'm going to encourage my daughter to reach out to the neighborhood to see, do they have young children that are going to be home? Because she's a great babysitter. Yeah. So what a win-win for everybody. So I don't know if you need a babysitter, Blake.
There you go.
I'll be dropping Jocelyn off. But what a win-win, right? Because she will get into her rhythm. She can be helping other people. So, the point of this is to not lay out every option on the table. But if you have options, parents, please, list them as we post this out, and let's have a conversation about other ideas that you have, because I think that parents are looking for the way that they can create this connection, create this rhythm for their children, have and maintain a rhythm in their own life. So any share that you guys have, we certainly don't have all the answers at all to this commentary, but something that we'd love to hear from you about.
Yeah, I think any of those creative ideas benefit everybody, because we're always looking for different ways to do this really incredibly hard job of parenting, right? So you've got the teenagers, right? One idea might be, hey, everyone, guess what? The daily Wi-Fi password, it's posted at 9 a.m.
Yep.
And it comes down at 9:15.
Yep.
You have a 15-minute window to figure out what today's Wi-Fi password is, so make sure your butt's out of bed.
Yep.
Ooh, I like you have that. A checklist, right? You can earn XYZ when you do A, B, and C, right? Yeah. You're up before 9 a.m. You make your bed. Get outside and be active. When you check those off, you can come back. And by the way, lunch will be prepared for you other than a PB&J, and you get today's Wi-Fi password or whatever. I mean, whatever you can come up with, but just try to think outside the box to make this creative and fun to a certain extent. The kids may not label it with those words, but creative and fun for them. But at the same time, what you're providing to them is a structure and a routine that is going to be similar but different than what they just came out of with the last school year.
Yep. And I think that works for younger kids too,
Oh, absolutely.
And so we would just encourage you to think about that. And, I know it's hard as a parent. We have guilt. They've been through a lot over the last year. And I will tell you, a trap that I've fallen into many times is then giving them a pass, letting them sleep all day, saying, they've had a lot of stress. Yes. And guess what? Staying in their bedrooms on their phones is not going to alleviate that issue for them. That they really want to hear from you as a parent. They may rail against it because it doesn't, in the moment, it's not what they want to do. And that's our job. Yep. And I'm not your friend. I'm your parent. So I think just embrace that and use the support of the other parents. That's why I think having a parent group, especially for younger children, is really important, because then you can rely on each other. Because sometimes if another mom is coming to get your kid, it creates accountability that I think is beautiful. So we do this with Lake Volleyball Carpool. If a kid knows that another parent is going out of their way, something magically kicks them in the hiney to get moving. Oh, yeah. If it's me driving carpool, we're less urgent about the situation. So I think use that as accountability, use that as motivation, rely on your circle. We talked about our circle. That circle this summer may get a little wider with other parents that you're relying on. So just planting some seeds for you in the middle of May. This episode's going to air right before my son graduates from high school. But even him, he's 17 years old, almost 18 years old. Ultimately, everybody really craves structure. And so how can we help create that for one another?
Yep. Yeah, so thank you for listening to this episode, and encourage you to just not let the summer kind of fall by the wayside. It's been difficult the last year for these kids, no matter what age group they are. It's been difficult for the parents too, of course, everybody all the way around. But just, think about these creative ways. Hopefully we've added some ideas, planted some seeds, and you guys can work with your community around you to figure out what's the best path forward. And with that, we will see you all next time.
Yes. Have a good week. Hey guys, thanks for listening to our show. You can find Blake and I on social media channels at Blake Greyhans and at Stacie Mallon.
Be sure to follow Optimized AF on Instagram and rate and subscribe to this podcast on iTunes. See you next time.